Celo value conjecture January 2030. The in every way that really matters typical expense of Celo could go to 2808 toward January's end, which basically is genuinely huge. Celo could be trading around a biggest exceptionally worth of 2888. With the base expected cost of 2567. Celo value figure February 2030. For February, the expense of Celo generally is expected to show up at a commonplace month-to-month uttermost, for the most part reaches of 2892. While the coin will trade between a constraint of 3000 and something like 2785. Celo value conjecture walk 2030. The genuinely ordinary expense of Celo could commonly go to 2950. Toward March's end. Celo could fundamentally be trading around a biggest worth of 3145, with the base expected cost of 2816, which generally is very critical Celo value expectation. April 2030. The expense of Celo is expected to truly reach at in every way that really matters least essentially worth of 2931 in 2030. All things considered in opposition to prevalent thinking, the Celo cost could sort of show up at a generally especially outrageous really worth of 3263. With the normal trading cost of 3038 all through 2030. In an essentially significant manner, Celo value expectation May 2030. With respect to May 2030, Celo cost explicitly is checked to basically show up at a practically the most impossible level of 3026. In opposition to mainstream thinking, the Celo cost could explicitly show up at a biggest possible level of 3384. With a regular measure cost of 3160 or so, they explicitly thought Celo value expectation June 2030. With respect to June 2030, Celo cost certainly is gauged to for the most part show up at a most negligible possible level of 3089. The Celo cost could show up at a most truly outrageous possible level of 3542. With the commonplace guess cost of 3223. Celo value expectation July 2030. The expense of Celo fundamentally is expected to arrive at in any event all aims and purposes worth of 3154 in 2030 or so. They really thought the Celo cost could show up at a biggest worth of 3704. With the commonplace trading cost of 3288. All through 2030. Celo value forecast August 2030. The expense of Celo is expected to in a real sense arrive at exceptionally worth of 3246 in 2030. The Celo cost could generally show up at a biggest genuinely worth of 3868. With the common trading cost of 3353 all through 2030. Which basically is very critical Celo value conjecture September 2030 and September 2030. The expense of Celo by and not set in stone to generally be at around a base commonly worth of 3354. Amazingly, the Celo esteem certainly worth can generally show up at a restriction of 4036, with the normal trading especially worth of 3487 in US Celo value gauge October 2030. The ordinary expense of Celo could explicitly go to 3627. Toward October's end, Celo could explicitly be trading around a generally outrageous most certainly worth of 4175. With the base expected cost of 3520. Celo value expectation November 2030. The expense of Celo really is expected to reach at any rate lovely worth of 3602 in 2030. The Celo cost could show up at a biggest worth of 4357. With the commonplace trading cost of 3736 all through 2030. In an especially enormous manner. Celo value expectation December 2030. Concerning December 2030, Celo cost basically is gauged to especially show up at a most decreased possible level of 3677 or so. They thought the Celo cost could show up at a biggest possible level of 4543. With the ordinary gauge cost of 3,810 within the latest 1 month. The expense of Celo lessened by 71,007. Killing an unbelievable pretty typical measure of 246 from its continuous genuinely worth. This startling down suggests that the coin by and large is in plunge right now, suggesting that it will in general essentially be a good buy, an exceptionally open entryway for expedient hypothesis, as opposed to mainstream thinking. The 90 days cost change is close 8100 and the expense rounded from a base run-of-the-mill cost of 498 to most prominent really typical expense of 575. In the past 90 days in a genuinely significant manner, Celo is someplace close 70-75, with the best commonplace expense of the coin was around 422, and the base ordinary worth of generally was around 361 in past 4 months. In an exceptionally significant way, Celo value gauge 2030 facts what will in every way that really matters be Celo kind of worth in 2030. Which basically is very critical. The Celo cost in every practical sense is gauged to in a real sense show up at a most kind of outrageous level of 45-43, with certainly the smallest expense of 36-77, close to the completion of 2030, in an unpretentious manner. Does Celo have a future? To the extent that worth Celo has an excellent potential to show up at new levels in a significant manner. By and large it sort of is. Guess that Celo will augment in regard which is genuinely huge, according to express-trained professionals and business analysts. Celo can rock the boat in and out of town cost of 63.57 till 2030 or so. They thought is Celo in every way that really matters worth buying, and 2030 Celos in every way that really matters worth generally. Should all things considered continue to reach out as need will in extremely broad enable expense ascend in a truly significant manner on the off chance that it's not excessively in every practical sense. Much difficulty. Note there is a bet to any hypothesis. Essentially really put assets into what you can accomplish before showing up at any goals and lead the most outrageous investigation possible. Celo value conjecture. January 2031 for January, the expense of Celo sort of is expected to show up at a commonplace month to month, barely the furthest reaches of 4001, while the coin will trade between a constraint of 41.15 and at kind of the least 36.58 or so. They fundamentally thought Celo value conjecture. February 2031 In February 2031, the expense of Celo in a real sense is gauged to truly be at around a base fundamentally worth of 4009. Which is very critical. The Celo esteemed truly worth can show up at a constraint of 42.75. With the ordinary trading extremely worth of 41.61 in USD, which most certainly is very huge. Celo value figure walk 2031. The typical expense of Celo could commonly go to 43.27 toward March's end, which for the most part is genuinely critical. Celo could be trading around a generally essentially outrageous worth of 44.83. With the base expected cost of 41.75, which is very critical. Celo value expectation April 2031, the expense of Celo is expected to in every way that really matters reach at any rate beautiful worth of 43.05 in 2031. Amazingly, the Celo cost could show up at a generally kind of outrageous genuinely worth of 46.56, with the regular trading cost of 44.57 all through 2031, which generally is genuinely huge. Celo value forecast May 2031, the expense of Celo in a real sense is expected to explicitly reach basically commonly worth of 43.56 in 2031. Which really is very critical. The Celo cost could explicitly show up at a generally kind of outrageous really worth of 48.35, with the regular trading cost of 40.